You've probably heard that actor Bruce Willis was diagnosed with dementia 3 years ago, and his wife Emma has been caring for him until just recently when the family came to her and expressed concern about her own well-being, saying that caring for him had become too much. So now he is staying at a memory care facility, and his wife Emma is getting a lot of criticism about it. Some people think the cost of long-term care is way beyond something that they can afford, but the reality is putting that responsibility on your family also has a set of costs. Well, today's conversation is going to be about long-term care, if you haven't guessed, and it's not about imagining worst-case scenarios. It's about giving yourself and your loved one options when it matters the most. Welcome back to Jacksonville's Retirement Coach with our host, Adam Wolf. Adam is a certified financial planner and president of Wolf Retirement Navigation. You can learn more at wolfretirement.com. Adam, nobody loves talking about long-term care.
Oh, that's true. It's a tough topic and, but an important one and one that we cover with many of our clients, because a lot of times think back, either your grandparents, your parents, your family members, friends, everybody, almost everybody, I should say everybody has probably been touched by it in one way, shape or form, whether it's, hey, I don't recognize, Pop anymore, or he doesn't recognize us anymore, or hey, we're the caregivers 24/7 for my mother-in-law. So it's one of those things where it's a tough topic, but having a plan in place to cover the basis, at least having the information that to be knowledgeable about it. Knowledge is power, and that's how we solve problems, is by having that knowledge.
This has become sort of a personal soapbox that I stand on because my parents didn't talk about long-term care. They didn't have a plan. And my husband and I are living examples of what happens when you don't have a plan. My mom passed away because of pancreatic cancer. And during her treatment, my stepfather was diagnosed with dementia. And so when she passed, we became primary caregivers for my stepfather, and he lives with us full time. And now every decision we make is now made with, an 84-year-old dementia patient in mind. And so I think people are quick to think it won't happen to them. It can't happen to them. My family was guilty of it. And so I say it to share it, not for sympathy, but to raise awareness about it, because we were guilty of not having the hard conversations until it was too late.
Yeah, I know. And it's like estate planning. It's because you're thinking about your mortality.
Right.
You're thinking about your morbidity, and it's just as difficult. But hey, you gotta rip the Band-Aid off, have that conversation with your loved ones, and we help our clients navigate through ways to fund it. Resources that we have here with Wolf Retirement here in Northeast Florida with our partners in referral sources, whether it's for elder care or senior facilities management and or billing management. So things that we have as a resource for our clients, we're here for.
Well, and that's a great point, because long-term care encompasses a lot of things. You mentioned having somebody come to your home. That's one facet of long-term care. It's not just somebody's getting put in a nursing home and that's where, Nana and Papa are going to be. There's a whole gamut of things that sort of fall under long-term care. And the statistics show that most people at some point are going to need it. In fact, I think it's 70% of Americans who reach age 65 will need some form of long-term care during their lifetime. And I think it's safe to say, living in Florida, right, if somebody said a 70% chance of thunder showers, you're going to bring an umbrella.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Jacksonville's the best to live for, weather related stuff, because they're like, hey, it's a 70% chance, but 40 miles away versus where I'm currently, but everybody in Jacksonville knows that joke. So it's probably the same as Atlanta Metro, but yeah, it's 70% of Americans who reach age 65 will need some form of it, whether it's 1 day or 10 years. The average is roughly around 2.5, 3 years of folks that need care. A lot of times, mostly all the time, Medicare doesn't pay for the majority of this stuff. So knowing what your options are, knowing the rules, knowing the risks is very, very important. But, to define long-term care, we're talking about not being able to meet 2 of your 6 activities of daily living, having cognitive decline or cognitive impairment, they call it. There's ways to navigate that, whether it's at home care with family members, at home care with nursing assistants, nursing aides, and then taking it to the next step of going to, quote unquote, independent living, assisted living, nursing home, full scare, memory care. Just a personal story. This is years ago, but my daughter Isabella's mother and I took care of her mother, who we moved her into an assisted living facility, and she needed the help, and she didn't, we didn't have the plan in place. It was more reactive, Alyssa, that, similar to that story that you just told, where, hey, we weren't in a situation to have her at the house, but we moved her into an assisted living. We paid for it. She had Social Security there as well. But we were in a situation where the family members, we just didn't have the skill set to care for someone with that situation. We tried our best for as long as we could.
Sure.
But then we had to go search for the resources. And at that point in time, this is over 10 years ago, that, we didn't have all the resources in place. And now we do, through elder care law, through Al Bodacious, who's a wonderful human being who helps with he knows all the ins and outs of the facilities and all the different nursing homes and assisted living care centers here in Jacksonville. So anybody that needs any type of resource, reach out to us first, and we're here to provide that information.
You said something that's so powerful, and it's so true, that the decision will have to be made about long-term care at some point, and you're either going to plan for it ahead of time and have an active say in what's going to happen should you need long-term care, or your family is going to have to make a decision reactively, and you may not get a say at that point. I don't know that living with me is what my stepfather would have wanted. I know he doesn't want to live in a nursing home. That he made clear. But the point being, he didn't have a choice, because the decision was made reactively when his primary caregiver, my mother, got sick and couldn't be his primary caregiver. It was reactive, not proactive. The family did what we had to do. And I think people forget about that part, that the decision will be made one way or the other.
Being open with your caregiver, or your future caregivers, your friends and family who you trust, is extremely important. Getting that on paper is extremely important. We have the conversations with our clients because we take a look at the major risks in retirement. One is the risk of running out of money. That's number one. That plays into market risk, because things outside of your control that could take and reduce your portfolio value. So that's number one. Number two, we have the tax risk. There's also, which we've touched on many times, there's the estate plan risk, where you want your stuff to go when you're no longer here. But also the other real big risk is the medical risk, or the risk of long-term care, which is what I'm coming back to here. So there's a way to get the insurance companies to pay for long-term care insurance, or a portfolio of assets that is available to fund the long-term care costs. But a lot of folks, hey, we've gone through the conversation and say, hey, you've had a certain amount of money saved. Is it going to be enough in case one of these events happens for you to, pay for these things? Because if not, you'll do two things. One is draw down your assets to whatever the level is in the state at that time. If you're married, the other spouse getting to keep a certain amount of assets, including the home, your homestead. And so does it make sense to do that? Draw it down to go on to what's called Medicaid. Then, or using assets now or income now to buy a hedge against that long-term care risk. And that's the only way you can hedge against a risk out there right now, is through an insurance company. So in the past, Alyssa, you're well aware of this, is the only way to get that hedge is to buy an insurance policy where you're paying on a monthly basis. And a lot of times you can buy a pretty good pool of asset that's there, or risk hedge that's there to pay for the long-term care insurance. but it's very difficult to get underwritten for it and to go through the process of actually getting it. There's very few companies out there now that are offering it because they had been burned in the past because of their the policies and the contracts that they wrote in the past were really in the benefit of the actual customer, which for insurance companies it was tough for them to cover those costs, so they got in a little bit of trouble. But that's not the only way to fund that. There are I call them hybrid types of insurance-based products, strategies that allow you to fund something with an asset. And it's not just an expense to you, it's an asset. And so if you use that asset when you need long-term care, it's there for you. But if you don't use that asset for long-term care, it goes to your spouse if you're married, your beneficiaries, whoever you want to leave that money to. So it's not a use it or lose it. So we get to the calculation of, does it make sense, number one, to have some of that in your plan, and if it does it make sense to how much to hedge versus your other income streams, your other assets that are going to be there, but putting your head in the sand like an ostrich and not thinking about it, that's not a plan. Listen, That's not a plan. So we help folks go through that calculation in that conversation to hopefully arrive at a pretty good outcome.
Well, and you brought up a good point that I think a lot of people get a bad taste in their mouth about long-term care plans because for a long time it was if you don't use it, you lose it. People poured money into long-term care plans for years and then never needed it, and that money was gone. Some people got lucky. My husband's grandmother was one of those that bought one of those old school long-term care plans, and she's in a facility now and it's fully covered, but she's also defying aging. She's 95 and looks 65, and whatever beauty tip she's got, I want, because she doesn't look 95. But not everybody has that. But what you're saying is there are other tools and there are other ways to have this be part of your comprehensive retirement plan without it being a don't use it, lose it scenario.
Yeah, we had a case with a client, a longtime client whose mother had gone through, or they were experiencing the mother go through the dementia, and we did a calculations. What they wanted to know, does it make sense to hedge, have the insurance company pick up some of the tab for them? And they were like, listen, we could spend down our assets, or we can, structure it to where we can have the insurance company pay for it. And what's the best way to do that? So we found a way to do that. That was, we took approximately between them both about $100,000 of their portfolio over the course of 10 years. So you could spread that out over 10 years. And we bought them approximately $425,000 of long-term care coverage over a course of 6 years. So if they use it, they have a nice pool of funds to offset the costs. There's no reimbursement for this. You had to send in receipts. It was more of, if you qualify for it, when you qualify for it, you're going to get a payment on a monthly basis. That was key for them to know they could do this without all of the restrictions that are sometimes common with traditional long-term care insurance. And what was also important for them is not losing that investment into that insurance-based plan if they didn't use it all. So that would be going to their beneficiaries for whatever is left over. And I can use an example. My mom's allowed me to use this example. Many folks who've been with me for a while remember Mike Harper. He passed away 2 years ago. Mike was, helping us with all the Medicare and long-term care planning and resources here at Wolf Retirement. Mike's a great guy. I knew him for 20 years. Wonderful husband to my mother. He had the best long-term care policies because he'd been doing this since the 90s. And he was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer, and 3 months later, he passed away. So he used zero, by the time we got all the paperwork together, he used 0 months of that long-term care policy, and he had been paying on it for decades. So
wow.
I've seen the other case, like you said, with your grandmother. That's the other case. So if you want to have some protection for the protection, doing something that's going to allow you to be flexible with, making, the decision you make now, 10, 20 years from now, you're going to be flexible with it. Maybe you can get the money back out. Maybe you can, grow it for another reason to supplement retirement income, something that's more of like a Swiss Army knife per se versus a one size fits all, pay as you go. And God forbid, if you need it, it's there for you. But also if you don't use it, you don't lose it. So,
right. I love that Swiss Army knife analogy. That's great.
Yeah. You remember those, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. And the one thing I didn't use on that Swiss Army knife was the toothpick, because that's disgusting.
That's just this. No.
Y'all remember the toothpick? I'm like, whose gaps between their teeth were that wide? I don't remember that.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's when you're going to get stuck and have to go into the hospital and try to explain yourself.
I like the little scissors, though. Those were neat.
Those are fun, yes. Well, as we've heard, long-term care is a reality for many families, but how you handle it is a choice. And to Adam's point, being the ostrich with your head in the sand is not it. Yet, statistically, only 1 to 4% of people have an actual long-term care plan. But planning ahead is what gives you a sense of control and preserves your dignity. It also helps you have the conversations with the people that you care about most. And if you're ready to tackle this hard topic, we know it's not everybody's favorite, you can start by scheduling a complimentary consultation with Adam today. The website is wolfretirement.com. Again, that's wolfretirement.com. You can also give him a call at 904-232-8760. We thank you so much for joining us and hope you'll subscribe so you never miss a future show.
Investment advisory services offered through Coil Capital LLC, a registered investment advisor. Wolf Retirement Navigation LLC and Coil Capital LLC are not affiliated. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss in periods of declining values. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and are not intended as investment advice or to predict future performance. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Consult your financial professional before making any investment decision. This information is designed to provide general information on the subjects covered. It is not, however, intended to provide specific legal or tax advice and cannot be used to avoid tax penalties or to promote, market, or recommend any tax plan or arrangement. Please note that Wolf Retirement Navigation LLC and its affiliates do not give legal or tax advice. You are encouraged to consult your tax advisor or attorney. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurer. Any references to protection or benefits or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products or services. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing company and not offered by Coil Capital LLC. Florida Insurance License Number W016816.